people can start losing weight just by making better decisions.
Motivation is driven from the inside out.
Use flexibility as a tool. Rely on structure when it's helpful.
This is where we discuss the possibilities.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Kori Propst with the Diet Doc, and we're back with the Diet Doc Life Mastery podcast. Hey, I'm here with Dr. Joe Klemczewski. Yesterday, we chatted about dieting and metabolic positioning, and what is that, and how do you get yourself into the best possible position to lose fat most effectively. And we dove a little bit into carbs and ketosis and the different strategies that we can use to get there and what's the best. But Joe, I would like to dig more into carbs today, if you're willing.
Sure.
Are they bad? There's so much out there that says, oh, carbs are evil. We have to cut them completely out of our diets if we want to lose body fat. And so let's go there.
All right. Well, another just tiny topic. We have this 20-minute podcast and we choose these easy little things to discuss. But maybe if we take it a bite at a time, we'll eventually get there and have some good answers. But I would like to say, first of all, when you look at research, because this is the thing now, everything is, quote, evidence-based, right? I feel like that should be a spoof, like the diapers we sell are evidence-based. This is evidence-based. Like nobody even begins a podcast on any topic without saying, we are science-based or evidence-based. So what people, I think, mean by that these days is they found one study that was passed along by somebody else in social media. They interpreted that person's perspective, and now they think they know everything about the topic. And I am just a huge fan of looking at it through the course of decades. First of all, you have to look at some kind of original question or hypothesis, and then look at all of the research that's been done, look at all of the anecdotal evidence that we have, and then we can start saying, well, hey, today in current literature, this study is effective because it explains this nuance of this entire topic that we're looking at. And so I'm going to go through some things as we talk about carbs that really look at it from that gigantic of a view, but really drilling into some of the things in current research that I think really explain, these factors in the best way. So I'm gonna volley the ball back onto your side of the court, Kori, just by asking you if you could categorize this topic. Are carbs good or bad? Should we, go into full-blown ketogenic dieting or not? What kind of categories would you want evidence to pile onto? Like, tell me what you want to know about carbs.
Those are two different questions. Okay. What do I want to know about carbs? So I'm going to go down the road of the questions that I get from a lot of my clients about carbohydrates to kind of guide this discussion. When are carbs best to eat? Because a lot of my clients, they come to me and they don't necessarily believe that carbs are bad. They have some beliefs about them based on what they've read or what their previous coach told them to do or how to think about carbohydrates. But so when do I eat carbs? What types of carbohydrates are going to be most optimal for me at what times? Should I eat carbs by themselves or should I combine them with the other macronutrients? For fat loss specifically, do I have to drastically reduce my carbohydrates to lose body fat most effectively? Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So you jogged something in my brain. I said I was going to look at the whole picture, right? So how about we start 25 million years ago? Well, that'll be our starting point.
Okay.
This will be just a short little topic. So 25 million years ago, or when the primate clade first showed up on the scene, and it took all the way to about 2 million years ago for the first evidence of fire. And from that 2 million year, 1.8 million year time frame forward, we know that Homo sapiens, first emerged around 200,000 years ago. Now they're saying maybe even as far back as 1 million years ago. But between that 2 million year time frame to a minimum of 200,000 years ago, there was a short window where our brain size tripled. So you go from 25 million years of hominid evolution, primate evolution, all the way to this, 1 million to 200,000 year crunch time, and all of a sudden cubic cranial size triples. And there are many, many theories. I actually wrote a paper on this. That's why I'm kind of excited about it last semester. But everybody used to think, okay, it was because we started eating protein, we started eating meat. But that had happened for a long time ago. There's evidence of eating marrow out of bones, things like that. Then they thought, well, it was the advent of fire because then we could eat more meat. And that's logical. That's, possible. Another theory is that the coastal hominids, if you remember, there were at least 5 competing groups just crisscrossing all over the globe, and they would interbreed. And these coastal ones were the first ones to eat a dominant amount of their food in fish. So they had DHA, which may have spurred brain growth. That's logical. But you have the stoned ape theory. We know that psilocybin in about 200 different forms of mushrooms are neurogenic. They actually make brain growth happen. So that's logical. We can see that in studies today. But there's another one in that when we did first invent fire, we could cook roots and vegetables and starches for the first time. So, for example, if you eat a raw potato versus a cooked potato, the raw potato has about 20 times less available glucose. So if all you had was glucose in those raw forms, it would take you 9 to 11 hours a day of nonstop eating to get enough energy to live. So obviously, we thrived when we were able to start cooking carbs, not just protein and all that stuff. So that's another theory. They don't have all these sorted out. Another one is just, like I said, some of that's interbreeding and genetics. We know all kinds of things happen. Like we have 23 pair of chromosomes. Primates have 22. Genetic mutations cause divisions in different clades and all that. So anyway, here's something that I think is drastically important. We know that glucose is the brain and the body's preferred source of energy. And why is that, Kori? See, I'm going to put you on the spot.
What do you mean?
Why do all the cells in our body use glucose first as energy when it's available?
I'm gonna lob that back at you.
because it's the easiest. It's the smallest form of energy. Molecularly, the structure is small, quick, accessible. So our brain can be fueled faster. Our brain is only 5% of our body weight, but uses 20% of our energy. And glucose drives that. We know if we're on a ketogenic diet, I mean, we feel sluggish, we feel tired, we just feel foggy. And even if you get into a keto adaptive state, which takes 2 to 3 months minimum on 0 carbs, no carb up day, no, hey, this is my cheat meal, my reward meal, none of that. You have to be keto adaptive, 0 carbs. What's that?
2 to 3 months.
Yeah. So then your body has a chance to at least adapt, and you'll use ketones more efficiently. Still doesn't mean it's the best. It just means you're adapting to that environment. So I'm gonna use that as a segue to say, look, first of all, no matter what one little study shows now, you're up against 25 freaking million years of evolution to try and tell the science community that your little fad diet is the best way to eat. We can eat that way because we can adapt, but let's look at some of the studies now. First of all, one more thing. I'll just say this because it's kind of fun. I have my 4th child, in her teen years now, and so we're looking at wisdom teeth, right? Did you know we have actual extra wisdom teeth from the times when we were actually chewing things like raw vegetables and things like that nonstop. And now we've evolved to just need smaller jaws, and we have these vestigial wisdom teeth. So sometimes if you get your wisdom teeth cut out, your doctor will take out 4 and they'll say, oh, by the way, there were 2 extra ones or an entire set of 4. So anyway, we are now we have evolved to eat starchy carbohydrates, preferably some that are less taxing to digest and more bioavailable. So again, your body can use carbs. That's how we have evolved. So people who say we just can't, like the paleo people, just wrong. We can, we do. So anyway, let's start with one of your first questions, Kori. Is it better for fat loss?
Yeah.
So in looking at this, I like to, of course, I'll look at any research study out there, but there are people in the field who do tremendous amounts of work. And Dr. Kevin Hall, who is one of the head guys in the NIH, he loves doing research on metabolism, carbs, fat, obesity, things like that. And like me, I think he puts a lot more emphasis on inpatient studies because we know self-reporting gives at least 30% reductions in reported food. Right. So when you compare a 0 or low carb diet to having carbs in a diet, a lower fat diet, and it's an inpatient study, so every gram of food is measured and accounted for, a low fat, higher carb diet wins every single time. So if you want the fastest fat loss, eat carbs, keep fat low. And that goes all back to what we talked about yesterday, which is, thermogenesis, how inefficient it is to use fat. And so our body just stores it for later. So that's just clinically proven. You can't, I don't think, make any case otherwise, but we're still talking about calories in, calories out. So you can do a low carb diet and have good results. You can even reduce cardiovascular risk markers and all of that. It's not that it's a horrible diet. It's just not the best.
So, okay, let me ask you a question. In terms of the studies that you're referencing, did they look at the types of carbohydrates that people were eating?
Yes, most of the time it's a good balance of whole food. Especially those inpatient studies, they're not saying, okay, here's your Twinkie for the day and this. These people generally go into this knowing that they're looking at a weight loss study. So it's primarily healthy food. In self-reported studies, that's where it's a lot harder to track.
Right. And so being inpatient, all that food was controlled. Everyone was eating the same foods in very controlled amounts, but they didn't look at, we're going to feed this group of people high glycemic carbohydrates and this group of people, more complex carbohydrates. Have there been studies on that?
There are definitely plenty of studies there, and it always comes down to quantity first. You can certainly, because of insulin production and all of that, you could end up with a little bit better margin with whole food. I mean, that's where you even have a greater thermic effect from the food, carbohydrate to carbohydrate if it's more complex. But again, it's just almost within the margin of error because it's quantity more than anything.
Okay.
So let's talk about another factor. I mean, I'm going to kind of let that lay there for now. Just for body fat loss, your winning diet is a low fat, higher carb diet. But let me make one more case for the reason carbs are kind of essential.
Okay, I have one question though. I want to interrupt you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, when you say low fat, higher carb, everyone who's listening is like, well, what the heck is a higher carb? Because I have one client who's going to be eating 200 to 300 carbs a day and another client who's going to be eating 100, and that may be quote unquote high for her. So what's a higher carb diet?
Well, most of the time in research, people are going to use the RDA for protein or at least close to it. And so you're going to be looking at about 15-20% of your calories coming from protein. And then a percentage of fat that's just normal is going to be 20 to 30%. If you're going to have a little cheese or salad dressing or some red meat, a couple servings a week, salmon, things like that, little olive oil in your salad dressing, we just expect a certain amount of fat that we would call normal. And so a high fat diet is typically around 50% of your calories from fat. That's when you're getting into that ketogenic range. So a lower fat diet, most people would assume, is 20 to 30% of your calories from fat, which leaves about 60% of your calories from carbohydrate.
Okay.
So the amount, the grams you consume depends on your overall energy need, your metabolism, but you're looking at about 50 or 60% of your calories coming from carbs in a normal diet. So just to get back into the topic of evolution a little bit and what is normal for our bodies, there is a guy out there, I don't even know what his stance is on dieting. He does a lot of different articles and research in different areas, but he loves studying carbohydrates and has a lot of work on this. It's Dr. Chris Masterjohn. And I remember in one series, he discussed the fact that of the master antioxidants, there are 2 or 3 antioxidants that basically control the entire spectrum of antioxidants in our body. And I think it's the one that is actually the most prevalent in our body is glutathione. Okay. So that is the master antioxidant. Alpha lipoic acid is right up there. But these are antioxidants that can resynthesize other antioxidants. They can take a vitamin E or vitamin C that's lost electrons and resynthesize it and make it active again. So glutathione is the mother lode in our body. Guess what glutathione is made from? Glutathione is made from glucose. Yeah. So studies show if you're not getting enough carbohydrate in your body, your glutathione production goes down and your immunity suffers. That's huge. Your immunity suffers if you don't eat carbohydrates. Now, again, you can take that too far and say that, well, then gosh, let's just eat all the pretzels, potato chips, and frozen yogurt I want because I need more glucose.
But that's not where those aren't full of antioxidants.
Right. But glucose makes your body produce more glutathione. But again, we're talking about quantity first. So too much sugar is going to do the opposite. You can reverse that course. You can make your immune system suffer because of too much sugar. So I'm not an advocate of saying, hey, I just love carbs, so let's go eat all the shitty, gross, sugary carbs we can. It's keep that in mind. We are advocating a healthy life here, right? The Diet Doc Life Mastery podcast is all about doing what's best for you to live your most optimal life. So I never want to be misquoted that we're going so far out of bounds that we're saying just eat anything. But these are the facts. This is the research, and it gets me slightly energetic to read a lot of these posts and these headlines that just keep talking about ketogenic dieting being the only way to eat or the way we were designed to eat, when it's just not true.
Yeah. Well, and I think we see, if we're following the individuals who we know are up on the literature and who are guiding their clients in the most appropriate ways, they are the ones who are saying, look, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not be so black and white to say that not eating any carbs is the best way to go. So, okay, we know now that a low-fat, higher-ish carbohydrate diet is going to be the best for us long-term, in a sustainable way, for fat loss, for overall immunity and health protection. Oh, I feel like we could stop right there and end the story.
Case closed.
Yeah. So we know that carbs are necessary.
And this is where, just the entire cornerstone of flexible dieting, as I described it 25 years ago, comes into play. If you want to have fewer carbs because you think your body, feels better that way, absolutely do that. But don't go down to zero. I looked at the Amazon top 100 best-selling titles in the diet category last night, and more than 50% are all keto books. And these are the people saying this is the only way to eat. And we know, I mentioned a Harvard study yesterday that said the number one way to create eating disorders is through ketogenic dieting.
Yes.
And that's what I am against, is somebody saying rigidly, this is the best way to eat, the only way to eat, everything else is going to kill you. And it's just quite the opposite.
Absolutely. So then we get into the nuances, like you said, which I'm sure that we're going to touch on as we continue this podcast. That'll hit on the questions that I asked. Then with carbohydrates, we're going to be eating them. When is the best time? How do we structure those? Things like that. So
yeah, we can definitely branch off into a lot of different topics in future podcasts. I think that'll definitely be a theme that we can keep running with.
Okay, so one final question for you. Person comes to you, they want to lose body fat, they've been on a ketogenic diet. Where do you start with them? Knowing, and this person understands now too, based on they've listened to our podcast and they have you as a coach, they know we need carbohydrates to be at our best and healthiest. What?
Yeah, this just happened last week. A client came exactly like that. Said, I have not lost weight in a year, and I've been desperately trying, and I'm on a ketogenic diet. And I said, okay, let's start. I'm not going to immediately throw 300 grams of carbs at this person, but let's go up to maybe 80, 90 grams of carbs a day. This was a petite, small frame female. And she kind of freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight. This is going to be horrible. She lost 3 pounds in her first week eating carbs. Now, there is a nuance here in that I think as most people think they're on a ketogenic diet, they're having those binges, whether they're telling anybody or not. They are having maybe planned increases, and they think that's part of the process. So whatever reason, I don't think it's magical that you just add carbs and somebody starts losing weight. It's still calories in, calories out. I think it just makes it more sustainable for them day to day, week to week. And it's that consistency that allows them to hit that metabolic position where they lose weight more efficiently. But yeah, to your question, start low, add carbs slowly, and then you're going to find that point where you can kind of build up and still be now at a normal range, a healthy range where you're increasing metabolic capacity up to your genetic normal. And then, also just being able to increase calories gradually because you're unsuppressing, so to speak, your metabolism.
You made me think though, if this person was on a quote unquote modified ketogenic diet because she was binging every few days, then it wouldn't be such a stark contrast to go to 80 to 90 grams to move carbs up there. But if you did have a person who was adhering to a scientifically keto diet, would you move carbs up that fast?
Yeah, I might have gone up a little bit slower, but at the same time, we're reducing fat quite a bit. This is a person who might have been eating 80 to 100 grams of fat per day, and cutting that, you've made room for those calories. But to your point, even going up to 80 or 90 grams of carbs a day, that may be less than she was eating, before, because she wasn't counting those misses, the days that she wasn't being accurate.
Right, so. Exactly. Well, I will just say that all of the clients who have come to me who have been following a modified or semi-modified ketogenic diet feel so much better once we start adding in carbohydrates, lowering protein levels and fat levels a bit. They feel much more stable. They feel less of a sense of urgency, and that kind of bingey type, looking for food all the time sort of behavior. And so, yeah, thanks for explaining all of this, Joe. I think carbs are not magical, but everyone seems to be kind of putting them in that category. And just
they're certainly not the enemy.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay, so thanks, guys, for listening this episode of the Life Mastery Podcast. We will be back with more. Please please share, please give us your comments and feedback. And thank you, Joe.
Thanks, guys.